Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for our No Confirmation Before Inauguration We Dissent digital rally about the SCOTUS vacancy that exists right now and the critical importance of protecting the seat of the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg from another Donald Trump appointment. We're going to hear from a great lineup of folks today. We have senators and advocates and healthcare storytellers with us today, and storytellers on other critically important issues too. You know, the real issue that we face with this Supreme Court nomination is it's multifaceted. We are facing the possible loss of healthcare protections for millions of Americans. We are facing the possible loss of reproductive rights and so many other rights that we've come to count on in our lives as Americans. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Lori Kinney with People for the American Way. I am joined by my co-hosts, Keith Tyrion of Alliance for Justice and Cedric Lawson of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. And we are going to be with you throughout the rally today as we hear from our wonderful speakers and give you an opportunity to contact your senators and let them know how strongly you feel no confirmation before inauguration. So I'm going to hand it over to Keith now to hear a little bit more about the stakes today.
Thanks so much, Lori. And I'm thrilled to be here with you, with Cedric, our fabulous speakers coming up, and all of you tuning in today. The stakes for this fight could not be higher. Even before naming Barrett, Trump had made clear that his nominee would be committed to dismantling our healthcare, overturning the precedent Roe v. Wade, and rolling back our civil rights. We're here today to speak out and show that the vast majority of people do not support confirmation before inauguration. The stakes are too high for our healthcare and our rights. I can't wait to hear more from speakers today and take action with all of you to stop this confirmation. And with that, I'll turn it over to my partner in crime, Cedric Lawson.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Again, my name is Cedric Lawson. I'm with the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. I'll say this, it really depends on the action that we take collectively to hold senators accountable across the country. It is not over until it's over, is what I've been saying every day. And as we work to hold each individual senator accountable, we need you, we need those who you know to take action and reach out to those senators on a daily basis. Of course, we have a calendar of activity that's in front of us. We have hearings next week. We have Senate activity. None of that can really move forward without hearing from all of us and on the importance of what it means to advance a nominee that has such a deep impact on our civil and human rights across the country. So with that said, I want to pass it back to Lori.
Thank you so much, Keith and Cedric. You are so right. You know, our senators are going to listen to us, their constituents, when it comes to an issue like this. You have a voice, you have the opportunity to use it. And now we're going to hear the voices of some of our great speakers who are joining us today. Let's hear from Ben Jealous, President of People for the American Way.
Hi, I'm Ben Jealous, President of People for the American Way. As Americans, we believe that healthcare is a fundamental right. Simply put, this Supreme Court nomination battle is about the future of healthcare. Amy Coney Barrett is being pushed forward for the express purpose of ending protections for pre-existing conditions for millions of our neighbors. She's being pushed forward to overturn the Affordable Care Act. In the midst of a global health pandemic, any senator who supports ramming through an anti-healthcare Supreme Court nominee doesn't deserve to keep their job. This is especially true this close to an election. In all of American history, we have always had the decency to not confirm a Supreme Court nominee when there's less than 6 months before the inauguration of the next president. President Trump is seeking to shred that precedent, ram through his nominee for the express purpose of destroying the Affordable Care Act. This question about the confirmation before inauguration has become a test for senators across the country. Will they stand with the people, respect American tradition, protect healthcare, Or will they yield to the special interests, to the health insurance companies, to the drug companies that are fueling this effort with their unlimited cash, and ram through Amy Coney Barrett for the express purpose, as President Trump has said, of destroying the Affordable Care Act? Forging ahead with this hearing, insisting that there be a confirmation before inauguration for a justice who's being put on the court to destroy health care is morally outrageous. And we need your help in ensuring that every senator understands that doing so for them would be politically unwise. If you want to put a steel rod in the backbone of a senator who is yielding, is being pushed by the special interests, if you want to get them to push back, well, then you got to rise up and make sure that they hear from you and that they understand there will be no confirmation before inauguration, and we expect them to stand up for our neighbors' health care. Thank you. Thank you for joining this movement. Thank you for being part of this rally. And now please join me in welcoming the great champion in this moment, the man who is leading the senators of conscience in the U.S. Senate, who have said there will be no confirmation before inauguration, and we will defend our neighbors' health care. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Senator Chuck Schumer, leader of the opposition and leader of this movement. Thank you and God bless.
Hi, everyone. This is Senator Chuck Schumer. With a month to go until Election Day, McConnell, Trump are moving fast to fill Justice Ginsburg's seat with the right-wing, regressive Judge Amy Coney Barrett. The hypocrisy is incredible. 4 years ago, they rejected Merrick Garland because there were 7 months from an election. But now, with a month to go till Election Day and many ballots already have been cast, they're full speed ahead on a right-wing ideologue who threatens almost everything we hold dear. Make no mistake, this process, this nomination process, is totally illegitimate. And if Amy Coney Barrett gets on the court, she'll set back America for a century. She'll vote to strike down our health care, eliminate protections for millions of Americans with pre-existing conditions. She'll vote to roll back women's reproductive rights. And the days before Roe, those dark days when women didn't control their own bodies, will be upon us. She'll vote against workers' rights to organize. This right-wing court wants to make America a right-to-work nation. She'll work against LGBTQ protections and against our right at the ballot box. And she will turn back, not move forward, our efforts to deal with global warming. But we must not lose our focus. 3 years ago, Republicans tried to repeal the health care law through Congress, and they failed because you organized, you raised your voice, and you fought back. We must put heat on those Republican senators. We only need 2 more. It's not going to be easy, but we did it with health care, and we can do it again. So call your senators, make your voices heard. Let them know we must not have such a radical, regressive nomination that would do such harm to so many Americans. This is our fight. Let's honor Justice Ginsburg's legacy, her dying wish, and fight to protect everything she worked for through her incredible life. And together, we can get this done. Thanks very much.
I'm LaShawn Warren, Executive Vice President of Government Affairs at the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. We are a coalition of more than 220 national organizations working to build an America as good as its ideals, ideals that Justice Ginsburg embodied throughout her incredible work. But as we know today, President Trump is insulting Justice Ginsburg's legacy by attempting to replace her with Judge Amy Coney Barrett, who will try to restrict civil and human rights in America. Judge Barrett's extreme record on the Seventh Circuit, along with her ideologically driven writings and speeches, demonstrates that she is incapable of rendering equal justice under law. Her confirmation to the Supreme Court would grant President Trump nearly unchecked power to continue the devastating assault on civil rights and human rights in America. And it would cement his ultra-conservative supermajority that could jeopardize critical civil rights and freedoms for generations to come. The very rights and freedom that Justice Ginsburg helped secure during her nearly 3 decades of service on the Supreme Court. That is why this week, the Leadership Conference sent a letter to senators signed by over 150 organizations opposing Judge Barrett's appointment to this lifetime position on our nation's highest courts. But it's not just Justice Barrett's disturbing record that we oppose. Given that more than 200,000 people have died from COVID, with 7 million infected, and the recent outbreak of COVID-19 on Capitol Hill and in the White House, senators can no longer pretend that a rush process to put this nominee onto the court is the Senate's most important business. Let's be clear, lives are at stake. If the Senate must do anything now, it is passing legislation to address the devastating effects of this pandemic and not rushing through a nominee who would take away healthcare access from all of us. And that's exactly what Trump promised. He told us he would appoint judges who would overturn the Affordable Care Act, and he has repeatedly done so. He has also threatened to nominate justices who would eviscerate Roe v. Wade, and Judge Barrett's hostility to this landmark ruling would likely make her a decisive vote to reverse it. The civil and human rights community is channeling Justice Ginsburg now to say, we dissent. We dissent to the sham process to rush through a third Trump justice while millions of Americans have voted and continue to vote. We dissent to the nomination of Judge Barrett, who would do real harm to communities in America. And we dissent to the Senate's majority decision to prioritize Justice Barrett's confirmation over passing critical relief for the people in this country who continue to suffer. We urge you to call your senators and tell them that you object to this nomination moving forward. And the civil rights community will continue to work to fight this confirmation. We can't win if we don't fight. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here today to stand up for our court. This nomination has been illegitimate from the get-go. We know Trump promised to nominate justices who would overturn the healthcare law and Roe versus Wade. We know Amy Coney Barrett's extreme record meets both marks. And we know that this nomination is a brazen violation of Justice Ginsburg's wishes. Over the past week, the tables were turned again as the president and members of his staff tested positive for COVID-19. Not even a worldwide health crisis that has taken hundreds of thousands of American lives can slow down their effort to put this anti-healthcare judge on the court. Just 1 week after the election, President Trump's acting Solicitor General is going to argue before the Supreme Court that 20 million people should lose their health coverage and that protections for pre-existing conditions will evaporate. That's all despite Trump himself and many of his allies now have a pre-existing condition. Members of the Senate Judiciary Committee have been directly exposed to the coronavirus, and they are still pushing ahead. They pretend that they have a mandate, but this president was elected by a minority, and these Senate Republicans represent a minority. Every single person in this country needs the health care they deserve. We need to protect reproductive freedoms in order to get an abortion, to access contraception, and to pursue in vitro fertilization. We need a democracy where elections are decided by counting every single vote. And that's why we are going to be doing everything possible to fight this nominee. Justice Ginsburg opened so many doors. We're not going to allow Amy Coney Barrett to close them. Thank you for being part of this fight. join us.
I'm Fatima Goss-Graves, President and CEO at the National Women's Law Center, and I am so glad to be with you right now. I'm going to try to cut through all of the noise that's out here right now and just get to the bottom line, and that is right now we have a crisis of leadership. Elected officials are trying to deny the will of the people in favor of their own political gains. We know what they should be focusing on right now. We need to get the pandemic under control. We still have people out of work, getting sick, and struggling to make ends meet. We have a care crisis in this country. 80% of the 1.1 million workers who dropped out of the workforce last month were women. And for months, the Senate has just been reckless and irresponsible as it has stalled on passing another COVID-19 package in favor of trying to rush a Supreme Court nominee in before a major election. These actions are wrong. If the Senate should do anything right now, it is actually pass legislation to address the devastating effects of this pandemic. It is actually addressing this care crisis in this country, not rushing through a nominee who would try to take healthcare away from us. So to that nominee, I want folks to know it is not hyperbole to say that it is all on the line with this nominee. It is healthcare that's on the line. It is access to reproductive healthcare, including abortion care, that is on the line. It is workers' rights that's on the line. It's voting rights that's on the line. It is marriage equality that's on the line. It is all on the line. So let your senators know, no confirmation until after inauguration.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alexis McGill-Johnson, President of Planned Parenthood Action Fund. Right now, our rights, our health, and our futures are on the line. Mitch McConnell is recklessly insisting on rushing a Supreme Court confirmation through the Senate. This process is already illegitimate. And now that members of the Senate have been diagnosed with COVID-19, it could become dangerous. Planned Parenthood Action Fund is fighting to stop Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation and any Supreme Court justice before the 2021 inauguration. President Trump said he would only nominate justices who would overturn Roe v. Wade. Amy Coney Barrett's record tells us that he picked her just to make good on this promise. We know there are 17 cases that are one step away from the Supreme Court that could determine access to abortion. We also know that 77% of Americans support access to safe and legal abortion. Our court should reflect that. Instead of focusing on the pandemic that has killed more than 210,000 Americans, that has infected over 7 million people, the Senate is ramming through a nominee who threatens our health and our rights. It's a disgrace to our democracy. It's a disgrace to the will of the people. And it's not just reproductive health that's on the line. The Trump administration and Mitch McConnell are again asking the Supreme Court to dismantle the Affordable Care Act, stripping coverage from nearly 30 million people. 133 million people have pre-existing conditions. They will face uncertainty. Amy Coney Barrett has strongly criticized both major decisions upholding the ACA. So we can't back down. There is so much we still need to do over the next few weeks. There's so much that we must do. We need you to call your senators today, and you can text SCOTUS to 22422 to get connected and tell them no confirmation before inauguration. Not before Election Day, not during the lame duck, not a single day before January 21st. Because it's not just Justice Ginsburg's seat that we're defending, it's the people's seat. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Alexis, Senator Schumer, and all of our speakers for your inspiring comments and everything you do to fight for our courts, including from AFJ President Nan Aaron, who I'm inspired to work for every day. But really, senators need to hear from you, from every single person tuned into this fight. You are going to make the difference by highlighting the stakes and how Barrett threatens our healthcare and our rights, and making that clear to senators. So right now, tomorrow, every day until the end of this fight, call your senators. Call them and tell them to oppose Barrett. Tell them no confirmation before inauguration. You can call the Capitol switchboard at 202-224-3121. Now, tomorrow, every day. And now I have the great honor to introduce Senator Elizabeth Warren, who really needs no introduction to many of you. Few senators have fought so tirelessly for the courts and rule of law that protects the rights of all of us, and not just the wealthy and powerful. From judges to legislation, she's tirelessly advocated for families, for consumers, and for economic justice, and fought for healthcare for all. And few are more passionate and better at explaining how issues of the courts and judges matter to all of us, to everyday people, and what the stakes are for everyone across the country. From day one after Justice Ginsburg's passing, she was outside the Supreme Court with us, firing up the movement and laying down the marker that we are here to fight and we are here to win. And with that, I'll turn it over to Senator Warren.
Hello. It is good to be here with you. It is good to be fighting alongside you to stop the Republicans from stealing another Supreme Court seat, fighting to protect the rights and the values that we hold dear. The American people have made clear that they agree with Justice Ginsburg's fervent wish that her seat be filled after the inauguration. Voting is already underway across this country, and there are only 26 days left before Election Day. But Republicans and their right-wing billionaire buddies want to ram this nomination through the Senate as quickly as possible. And that's because Amy Coney Barrett is their ticket to complete a decades-long assault on our judiciary, an assault by billionaires, giant corporations, and right-wing extremists to tilt the court further in their favor. We know what this is. This is the last gasp of a desperate party that is undemocratically overrepresented in Congress and in the halls of power all across our country, of a corrupt Republican leadership that is numb to its own hypocrisy and that doesn't reflect the views of the majority of Americans or the values we hold dear, of a right-wing billionaire-fueled party that wants to hold on to power just a little longer in order to impose its extremist agenda on the entire nation. We know Trump's nominee will deliver the death blow to the Affordable Care Act and rip away health care from millions of people in the middle of a deadly pandemic. Trump's team is already in court demanding this. We know Trump's nominee will overturn Roe versus Wade. Trump has already told us over and over again that that's what he will do. We know Trump's nominee will rubber stamp his attacks on dreamers and immigrants, undermine voting rights, and help steal the election for him. We know it because he's already told us his game plan to get it done. We cannot stand down when Donald Trump tries to hand our highest court and the rights and liberties of the American people over to extremists. This is a righteous fight, and we need all hands on deck. We need you to make calls, to rally, to tell your stories. And look, I know sometimes it can feel hopeless, but remember, hope is not given to us. Hope is something we create. Justice Ginsburg was an icon, but the thing I admire most about her is she was a fighter. And no matter how hard the battle, she never gave up. And neither do we. We are in this together all the way. Thank you.
This is Rebecca Wood.
And this is Charlie.
Hi. Hi.
We're asking a delay in the confirmation vote to the Supreme Court. We are concerned that we, like millions of other Americans, will lose access to health care if the ACA is repealed. Charlie was born at
26 weeks.
Gestation. She weighed 1 pound,
12 ounces.
And was the size of my hand. You're pretty big now, huh?
Yes, okay.
Because of the ACA, she was able to get the health care she needed so that she was able to grow to where she is now. Otherwise, her birth would have been a pre-existing condition. And she would have exceeded a lifetime cap before ever coming home from the NICU.
What does that mean?
It means it cost so much for you when you were in the NICU that
I didn't even have wallets when I was a baby.
when you were in the NICU, that insurance would say that they're done paying. And because of the ACA, they can't do that. They have to keep covering you and paying your medical expenses.
Does that mean like putting a blanket over me? Covering?
Well, kind of, but it's a metaphorical blanket.
Okay, let's just continue talking.
Okay. Without the ACA, Charlie and millions of others, and me, because I have pre-existing conditions myself, will become uninsurable. And without insurance, what chance do we have at a decent life in this country?
Stop.
So,
Let me wait you 2 minutes.
it's okay. So, we are asking to please delay the vote for a confirmation of the Supreme Court, because our lives are at stake. Our health care is at stake. Millions of people's health care is at stake. And this is just too important of a seat to fill in a hurry against the wishes of most of us. Do you have anything else to add?
Bye.
Hi, I'm Sherilyn Eiffel, President and Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, the nation's premier civil rights legal organization committed to fighting every day for racial justice. Our organization was founded by Thurgood Marshall, who later became the first Black Supreme Court Justice of the United States. We take the Supreme Court very seriously, and that's why we know that the Senate should not rush through the confirmation of a Supreme Court nominee at this moment. A majority of Americans agree with us. The reasons are very simple. First and foremost, we are in the middle of a general election. Millions of votes have already been cast for the president and for Senate seats around the country. Most voters believe that the American electorate should have the opportunity to choose the president and the Senate, who will nominate and confirm someone to fill the seat left vacant by the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Secondly, we're in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, the most critical public health crisis we have faced in a century. And yet the Senate has failed to move on the latest COVID-19 relief bill, a bill necessary for ordinary Americans facing this health challenge and facing the financial fallout from the pandemic. That's the issue of urgency that this Senate should move on. And lastly, the rights at issue that will come before the Supreme Court in the coming term and the next are too important to rush through a confirmation. Of course, the ACA, of course, abortion, but also affirmative action, also voting rights, also the Fair Housing Act, and all of the core civil rights statutes that are likely to come before this court hang in the balance. So you know what to do. Contact your senator. Tell them that we can do better and we must do better, that our democracy demands that we wait and not rush through hearings and a confirmation for this Supreme Court seat.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Epps-Addison, President of CPD Action, and I'm here today with one simple message: no confirmation until inauguration. It is ludicrous that after months and months and months of families struggling in this pandemic, 62 million people filing unemployment claims, people being evicted from their homes, families unable to get the health care they need in the midst of a pandemic, that these Republican senators are spending their time trying to ram through a judicial nominee from an impeached president. So here's what we need you to do. If you can get to DC next week, get to DC. Make your voice heard. Join safely, social distance, but join in the movement on the ground. If you can't get to DC, whether a Democrat or a Republican is your senator, you need to contact them and tell them no confirmation until inauguration. It is up to us to mobilize the power necessary to stop this immoral movement and to make sure that this election is safeguarded and that our Supreme Court is safeguarded.
And thank you, Jen. It's always great to hear from a fellow Wisconsinite. Something that, of course, we learned back in Wisconsin is the importance of grassroots action and what it means to actually hold decision makers accountable and to hold them accountable until the very end when it comes to issues as important, for example, as the Supreme Court. So we make the ask again that you all reach out to your own senators and call them on the Capitol switchboard. Call them at 202-224-3121. Again, 202-224-3121. And call your senator and let them know what is at stake regarding this Supreme Court vacancy. What is at stake in terms of the vacancy itself, and what is at stake in terms of the issues that are important to you and what you care about. And now I actually have the pleasure of being sandwiched in between two Wisconsinites. We are going to hear next from Tammy Baldwin. And Senator Tammy Baldwin has been a tireless advocate for us in Wisconsin and for everyone across the country when it comes to civil and human rights. Senator Baldwin understands the importance of the federal judiciary and, of course, again, what's at stake regarding this Supreme Court vacancy and what it means for this particular nominee. So let's hear from Senator Baldwin.
Right now, Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans are moving forward on President Trump's nomination to the Supreme Court. This is your highest court, and I believe that you should vote in the election before the Senate votes on this nomination. The stakes are simply too high for the American people to have a rigged confirmation process give away a seat on our highest court to an activist judge who will do what President Trump wants: terminate health care for millions of people. Trump is supporting a lawsuit right now to overturn the Affordable Care Act completely. This case will be heard by the Supreme Court next month. And if the Trump administration has their way, millions of Americans will have their health care taken away, and millions more will have protections for pre-existing health conditions taken away. This is what's at stake with this Supreme Court nomination, and that's why we need to do everything we can to stop President Trump and Senate Republicans from moving this nomination forward and taking away people's health care in the middle of a pandemic. Together, we have fought against health care repeal before, and we need to fight again now. Please make your voice heard in Washington. Contact your senator today and tell them what's at stake for you and your family. Make sure they know that you want to vote before the Senate votes. Make sure they know that you don't want your health care terminated by President Trump.
Hi everyone, and thanks for being here today. My name is Erin Gabriel, and I am the Director of Advocacy for Little Lobbyists. More importantly, I am Abby, Bridget, and Colin's mom. At Little Lobbyists, we are a family-led organization advocating for the healthcare, education, and community inclusion that our children with complex medical needs and disabilities need to survive and thrive. Unfortunately, the nomination of Judge Barrett to the Supreme Court threatens all of those things. Not only is this nomination being rushed through at a breakneck speed, but is being done against the will of the American people, and all while people are already voting. In fact, my husband and I just cast our ballots here in Pennsylvania on Monday. And why? Why hurry? My youngest daughter, Abby, is turning 11 tomorrow. It's a birthday that was never promised to us, and we are so grateful. She is a beautiful, fun, mischievous little girl who loves playing with her big brother and sister, exploring the outdoors, and of course, all things Disney. She is deafblind, autistic, and has a rare progressive neurological syndrome affecting multiple organ systems, causing seizures, muscle wasting, anemia, and fatigue. Medically, Abby has had to go through a lot, but thanks to the protections of the Affordable Care Act, protections for people with pre-existing conditions, bans on lifetime caps, we have never had to worry about her access to health care. Judge Barrett's stance on the ACA threatens that access, for not just Abby, but for thousands of children across the country like her. 1 month from tomorrow, 1 month from Abby's birthday, the Supreme Court will hear arguments in a case that is trying to overturn the entirety of the ACA. And that is their big hurry. Republicans are in such a hurry to confirm this Supreme Court nominee so that they can rip away health care from millions of Americans, including my own daughter, and all in the midst of a pandemic with absolutely no replacement plan.
So what can we do? Call your senators and keep calling them, and then vote. Vote like the lives of your children depend on it, because they do. Vote for candidates who will fight for our families up and down the ballot so that kids like Abby can keep celebrating birthdays. Thank you.
Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg meant so much to so many. She worked tirelessly until the very end so that the poetry of our Constitution lived up to its promise. But before she was even laid to rest, Donald Trump named an extremist to fill her seat. As a teacher with over 31 years in the classroom, I've witnessed firsthand how the Supreme Court affects the lives of this nation's children, their families, and our communities. And let me be clear, if confirmed, Amy Coney Barrett will accelerate the court's assault on workers and unions, taking away protections and power from workers like educators, just when they need it the most. Strong unions built this country. Unions provide a way for working Americans to have a powerful voice in an economy that's rigged in favor of the wealthy and the powerful elite. As unions succeed, our families and communities prosper. Amy Coney Barrett has consistently ruled in favor of the wealthy and well-connected forces over everyday working people. She will join the extreme right on this court that in the midst of a global pandemic is poised to take health care away from millions and ending protections for those with pre-existing conditions. There is simply too much at stake. We must speak up. We must act. As president of the nation's largest labor union, I promise you, the 3 million members of the National Education Association will fight for those who do not have a voice. Join us so we can use our collective power to ensure all our children have the right to pursue happiness. Call your senators now and tell them to vote no on the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in to this wonderful and important digital rally. My name is Adam Hoyer and I am the National Organizing Director for Protect Our Care. We are a healthcare organization whose primary mission is to do everything that we can to protect the healthcare of millions of Americans from being repealed. And in our time in existence, I don't know if our healthcare has been under more dire threat than it is right now, because after trying and failing to repeal the Affordable Care Act 100 times in Congress, and many of you probably remember the repeal fight a few years ago that ended at the hands of a John McCain thumbs down. After trying and failing to repeal the ACA in Congress, Trump and Republicans are now trying to repeal our health care through the courts. And their reckless, senseless, potentially catastrophic lawsuit has made its way all the way to the Supreme Court, where it will be heard on November 10, just 1 week after this year's election. That is why Trump and Republicans are in such a rush to get their anti-health care nominee seated on the bench of the Supreme Court before the election, because they know that she will move us significantly closer to their ultimate goal of destroying the ACA and its protections for millions of people with pre-existing conditions, like me, like you, like plenty of people that you and I both care about. So we have to put a stop to this senseless rush to confirm and seat Amy Coney Barrett now. Call your senator, tell your friends in red and purple states to call their senators, and share your healthcare story, because like the repeal fight 3 years ago, that is what will ultimately break through to these senators whose voice and vote matter most. So thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your role in this fight. And thank you for all the work that you're about to put in to put a stop to this rushed and reckless Supreme Court nomination that would rip away health care from millions of Americans.
Thank you so much to Senator Baldwin and to all the great advocates we just heard from. You know, Adam is so right. Healthcare is more at risk now than at almost any time in our recent memory. This Supreme Court nominee has already come out against the healthcare law that has been a lifesaver for countless people. It's just critically important to call our senators now. That number is 202-224-3121, and remind them no confirmation before inauguration. There's just too much at stake, too much on the line right now. Decades of hard-won victories in the Supreme Court, including our healthcare, including reproductive rights, including issues related to racial equity. So much is at risk right now. We just can't let that happen on our watch, and our senators need to hear from us. Again, that's 202-224-3121. And now I'm really excited to hand it off to a great champion for healthcare and for her constituents, a fighter to protect healthcare for millions of Americans, Senator Maggie Hassan from the great state of New Hampshire. Senator Hassan.
Hi, everybody. I'm Senator Maggie Hassan from New Hampshire. First of all, let me thank People for the American Way for organizing this digital rally. And thanks to all of you for being part of it as we come together to fight once again to save our country's health care. You remember back in 2017, Donald Trump was in the White House and the Republicans controlled both the House and the Senate. And they were determined to do what they had been wanting to do for years, which was repeal the Affordable Care Act and those critical protections for people with pre-existing conditions that come with it. And we all thought after the House passed that repeal in 2017 that the Senate would follow. And yet people from all around the country reached out, contacted their senators, and by a margin of just one vote, we saved the Affordable Care Act. The reason that happened was because of all of you and people like you all across the country who told their stories about why healthcare is essential to them as people and essential to our way of life as Americans. I happen to have one of those stories too. Many of you know our oldest son, Ben, now in his early 30s, has very severe cerebral palsy and a lot of health conditions that are related to that underlying condition. And Ben relies on very specialized expert care. He can go from being stable to pretty sick awfully quickly. That care is essential for Ben's survival, and it's essential to my family's peace of mind and, frankly, our capacity to work and engage in our community. Well, all around the country in 2017, people stepped forward and told those stories. They actually traveled to the United States Capitol at great expense and often great hardship, with children, for instance, who needed to come with specialized equipment, oxygen tanks, medication, but they made that trek in order to say in person to their senators what healthcare meant to them and why the Affordable Care Act was so critical to them. Now, I personally think that no American should have to travel in person and have a conversation where they share the most intimate details of their health conditions with people they don't even know. But in fact, that's what it took. It took people coming in person to plead for their health in order to save the Affordable Care Act. Well, now here we are in 2020, and the Republicans, having failed to repeal the Affordable Care Act legislatively, are giving it one last shot by rushing through a Supreme Court nomination for a nominee who is, by all accounts, if you look at her record, going to vote to invalidate the Affordable Care Act. Senator McConnell and Senate Republicans are trying to do through the courts what they weren't able to do legislatively 3 years ago. And once again, we all have to do everything we can to make the case to Senate Republicans that they should not take away healthcare, especially in the middle of a pandemic. Not only do people need healthcare now, people who get COVID and survive will have a pre-existing condition moving forward. If the ACA is repealed, the protections that come with it for those people will also be gone. Now, again, I don't think any American should have to plead for healthcare. I think it's a right. But what we know is that when Americans come together and make the case and talk about the fact that healthcare is essential to them, matters to them, and that they count too, because in a democracy, everybody counts, we make a real difference. So folks, thank you for attending today. Thank you for telling your stories. Reach out to your Republican senators and make it clear that healthcare matters. It's a right. It is personal to you. It's a voting issue to you. And right now, in the middle of both a pandemic and an election, we should be focused on COVID-19 relief and protecting healthcare, not taking it away. Be safe, everyone.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sharon McGowan, and I'm the Chief Strategy Officer and Legal Director of Lambda Legal, the nation's oldest and largest legal organization dedicated to securing LGBT equality and equality for everyone living with HIV. Thank you so much for being here today as we do this digital rally. The stakes could not be higher for the LGBT community, but for the country as a whole. And I'm so glad that everyone is here engaged to stand up for the Supreme Court, which is our court. We know that the Affordable Care Act hangs in the balance right now. And the fact that we have opponents of healthcare have refused to allow the Affordable Care Act to stay safe and secure and have continued to gun at it. That is in many ways the exact same experience that LGBT people are living in right now, where 5 years after the Supreme Court announced marriage equality as the law of the land, we see efforts again and again to try and undermine those protections that have been also life-saving for LGBT people and our families. And just this past week, we see Justices Thomas and Alito literally laying out a welcome mat, encouraging Amy Coney Barrett to come and join their fight, join their efforts to undermine marriage equality. The stakes are as high as they could possibly be. Everyone needs to bring all of their energy to this fight. We need to fight this to the end. We need to make sure people are getting out and voting, and we need to make sure that everyone knows that the Supreme Court is our court. This country is our country. And so keep up the great work, and thanks again for being here today.
Losing Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg on Friday from cancer is an incalculable blow for our country and also for people like me. For millions of other Americans living with cancer, the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett layers terror on top of our grief. I'm a stage 4 cancer survivor, and the Affordable Care Act saved my life. That very law now hangs in the balance, and perhaps my life does as well. Hi everyone, my name is Laura Packard, and I'm a small business owner in Denver. I'm a stage 4 cancer survivor and a health care voter. Today, I wanted to share why every American should be a healthcare voter too. 3 years ago, I walked into a doctor's office with a nagging cough. I walked out with a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. The day after I received my first chemotherapy treatment, Republicans in the House voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act, the very law that was helping to keep me alive. Since then, I've checked the news every day to find out what deadly new gimmick Trump and Republicans were proposing to rip away healthcare from myself and millions of Americans like me. President Trump promised to nominate judges that would strike down Obamacare. Now he has chosen a radical right-wing judge, Amy Coney Barrett, who is on record opposing the ACA. Donald Trump and Senator Cory Gardner are trying to jam a Supreme Court appointment through the United States Senate because they believe they can finally overturn the ACA. The court will hear that case just 1 week after the election. That means this November, healthcare is on the ballot and it's on the docket. The future of the ACA hangs in the balance. Trump and Gardner's crusade to repeal the ACA threatens protections for 2.4 million Coloradans and 135 million Americans like me who have pre-existing conditions. On top of that, millions more may join our ranks as they recover from COVID-19, which is also a pre-existing condition. So tonight, don't be fooled by Trump's lies. His healthcare plan has been clear for 4 years now. Tear away healthcare from millions of Americans and leave people with pre-existing conditions defenseless against insurance companies once more. He then lies about his own record because Trump knows Americans will never support his attacks on our care. Enough is enough. We are all healthcare voters now.
Thank you to People for the chance to be a part of this important program.
at this pivotal time. You know, you choose the issue, whether it be healthcare, voting rights, reproductive justice, fairness, inclusion, and justice for all. Like, this process and this nominee is expedited. This is unprecedented power grab, even by their standard. This is totally unacceptable. By way of brief introduction, my name is Reggie Hubbard, and I'm a senior strategist and congressional liaison at MoveOn. I'm also a committed yogi and servant of healing, truth, and justice to the movement and to the moment. And it's an honor to be with you in this forum to come together in unison to denounce the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court and the process that is seeking to fast track her nomination. It's never been more apparent that the Senate Republican caucus only cares about one thing. It doesn't care about justice. It doesn't care about coronavirus relief. And it certainly doesn't care about coronavirus epidemic that is ravaging the American public and people who are suffering also with corresponding economic uncertainty. And the Republican caucus certainly doesn't care about the fairness that they clamored for and cried crocodile tears about as they held up the nomination of Merrick Garland in 2016. Let me be clear and let me make it plain. The rush nomination of Amy Coney Barrett is an affront to democracy, it is disgraceful, and it is a craven, brazen power grab and the last gasp of a regime hell-bent on contorting the system to their advantage rather than to seek to embody the notion of justice for all. And to take place so near the election, it just makes it all the more unfortunate, disgusting, and unacceptable. The hypocrisy and political malpractice must be met with the same ferocity that we summoned to save the Affordable Care Act, to protest the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and countless others this summer, and to impeach the president last year, because the fate of our democracy depends on our response in this moment. We deserve better from our elected officials, and I'm here to remind us that this Supreme Court nomination is not about them, it's about us. This experiment in democracy holds three important words as sacrosanct: we the people. Our voice should be heard in this process. We the people know that the Trump administration and Senate Republicans should be focused on stopping the spread of COVID-19. Instead, they seem to be more focused on stopping the spread of democracy. We the people know that while a majority of the country disagrees with their approach, their priority is packing the court. And we the people know that we're on the right side of history and not stuck in the past. And look, I get it. You know, as someone who has been in the heart of this fight from the beginning of the Trump administration, there's a lot of fatigue, a lot of fear, and a lot of anger. Totally understand that. But he who has ears, let them hear this. Fatigue, fear, and anger are no excuse for giving up right now. Hear me. Fatigue, fear, and anger are no excuse for giving up right now. French writer Victor Hugo reminds us of the following: nothing is more strong than an idea whose time has come. So the corollary must also be true. There is nothing weaker and more desperate than an idea whose time has passed, yet still scrapes and claws to maintain relevance. My friend and fellow teacher, so I'm a yoga teacher, my friend and fellow teacher, Ethan Nickturn, shared the following wisdom that I care to share with us here in this forum. Start acting like you're a member of a compassionate majority up against a desperate, fearful, shrinking minority, because you are. One more time for those in the back. Start acting like you're a part of a member of a compassionate majority up against a fearful, desperate, shrinking minority, because you are. We are the majority that fought the Republican majority in the Senate and the House and saved the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, in 2017. We're the majority that flipped the House in 2018. We're the majority that impeached the president in 2019. And then we're the majority that will hold them accountable in this process. And we will only end this national nightmare in November by voting the president out of office and flipping the Senate. But we must also have the same ferocity and focus on the Supreme Court fight. As dearly departed Justice Ginsburg ably demonstrated throughout her career, the majority doesn't have it right all the time. It's important for us to dissent. And we must follow her example and dissent even when we're the only person that's dissenting. It is important for us to stand up and dissent, supported by the example of our ancestors and fueled by the passion of younger generations that are clamoring in this fight for change. So while we may be feeling, as so eloquently articulated by Elder Fannie Lou Hamer, sick and tired of being sick and tired, let our dissent be as focused and methodical as the opinions and casework of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Let us have the courage and tenacity of Elder John Lewis and find a way to get in the way in this process. And recalling the wisdom of Elder Frederick Douglass, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has. So we are here to demand justice, and we must demand justice in this process and justice for all. If there were ever a time in our political history to show up, it's now. Donald Trump and the Senate Republicans don't care about your health care. They don't care about your family, your job, or when your next paycheck will come in. We are appalled at Move On at the attempt to replace Justice Ginsburg with this transparent political power grab, and we're committed to opposing it in the Senate and to defeating them at the ballot box. So what can you do? You can sign petitions. You can call your senators, and if they're Democrats, support them in this and tell them to keep fighting and keep delaying. And if they're Republicans, tell them we won't stand for this. We're not going to take this anymore. And show up to the polls with such power that it shows a repudiation of this behavior and creates even more pressure on vulnerable senators to consider the voices of their constituents before considering something they have no business doing. Blessings to all. Love, do courage in this fight. Love and grace. Peace out.
Thanks so much, Reggie. You and Move On have been a critical partner for years, and it's always great to share the now virtual stage with you. And now for everyone tuning in, senators need to hear from you. They need to hear that a vote for Barrett is a vote to strip away healthcare for millions, is a vote to overturn Roe v. Wade, and is a vote to install a justice on the court that Trump has openly said he's counting on to help his reelection. Speak out. Call your senators at 202-224-3121. And if you've already called, tweet at them. If you've already called, you've already tweeted, pull out your phone and text 5 friends to do the same. Next, we'll hear from Chris Kang, co-founder and chief counsel at Demand Justice. And whether leading judicial selection during the Obama administration or now rallying on the steps of the Supreme Court at Demand Justice, Chris is truly one of the fiercest advocates for a federal judiciary that protects the rights of all of us. So glad to have you here, Chris, and over to you.
Hi, I'm Chris Kang with Demand Justice, and our democracy is on the line. Already this summer, the Supreme Court has ruled time and time again against voting rights. In Wisconsin and Florida and Texas and Alabama, and surely more to come, Donald Trump has made clear that he wants his hand-picked Supreme Court justices in place to rule on any election-related disputes, to quote-unquote look at the ballots. Our democracy is on the line because Republicans are trying to steal a second Supreme Court seat in just 4 years and rig the court for the next 40 years. The Senate has never confirmed a Supreme Court nominee after July of a presidential election year, and here we are just weeks before Election Day, and many of us have already cast our ballots. Our democracy is on the line because Republicans try to use our courts to achieve things that they couldn't do through Congress or the White House, like overturning Roe versus Wade. With Judge Barrett, she has signed a 2-page ad urging the overturning of the quote-unquote barbaric legacy of Roe versus Wade. Republicans are trying to use our courts to strike down the Affordable Care Act, which they couldn't do through Congress. This would rip away protections from 130 million Americans with pre-existing conditions and take away health care from millions of Americans during a pandemic. That case is going to be considered before the Supreme Court on November 10, and which is why Republicans are rushing so quickly to move this nomination through. With so much on the line, our senators need to hear from us. If they support this nomination, they need to know that we're going to hold them accountable. And even if they oppose this nomination, they need to hear from us and know that we demand that they fight with us. There is too much on the line. So we need to call, email, text, tweet, fax if you've got it, letters to the editor, op-eds, whatever it is. Our senators need to hear from us and our friends and our family and our neighbors, our coworkers, whoever you can, to get the word out that this nomination is illegitimate, the process is illegitimate, and it absolutely must be stopped.
Hi everyone, my name is Jody Rabhan and I'm the Chief Policy Officer at the National Council of Jewish Women. I am here today because I am outraged. I'm outraged that in the midst of a global pandemic that has affected every single American, Senator McConnell is prioritizing rushing through a Supreme Court nominee instead of addressing the public health emergency and economic recession. More than 200,000 people have died. More than 30 million people have lost their jobs, and without employment, they are also without health care. We are, in fact, in the middle of an election More than 5.5 million people have already voted, and 75% of voters have been clear that they want the Senate to pass meaningful COVID relief before confirming a nominee to the Supreme Court. The coronavirus outbreak on Capitol Hill and in the White House highlights the urgency of getting this pandemic under control and adding to the number of cases, and God forbid, worse, by putting senators, their staff, building staff, and more in harm's way by holding hearings is just downright irresponsible. If the Senate must do anything right now, it's passing legislation to really address the devastating effects of this pandemic and not rushing through a nominee who would take healthcare, including abortion rights, away from us. Senators need to hear from you, whether they agree with you or not. This is not a normal time, and the Senate should not be acting like it. Use NCJW's courtsmatter.org website to call and email your senators. Use our sample graphics and language to reach out to them on social media. And if they agree with you, ask them to do more. They can talk to their colleagues, hold town halls and rallies, speak out in the press. As a constituent, you can and you must hold your senators accountable. Do not stop speaking out for your rights, and for our court. For the sake of everything Justice Ginsburg fought for and to honor her dying wish, let's ensure the next president fills this seat. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dahae Kim, and I am the Legal Advocacy and Judicial Strategy Manager at National Asian Pacific American Women's Forum, also known as NAPAWF. Thank you, People for the American Way, and thank you to all of you for attending today. NAPAWF is the only organization focused on building power with Asian American and Pacific Islander women and girls to influence critical decisions that affect our lives, our families, and our communities, which is why we strongly oppose Amy Coney Barrett's nomination. Every major issue that we care about, from immigration to healthcare to reproductive rights, is under threat with Judge Barrett as a Supreme Court justice. Thanks to the ACA, millions in our community received health insurance, leading to millions of preventative care visits and getting treatments when we need them. Amy Coney Barrett is alarming because the Supreme Court is set to hear arguments striking down a key provision of the ACA and potentially the entire law, and she made it clear that she will strike it down if given a chance. As a judge, she sanctioned sex-selective abortion bans, which is a type of law that is based on false, racist stereotype that Asian American women prefer sons. These laws encourage racial profiling against Asian Americans seeking abortion care, and it is unacceptable that she supported this. She is also in favor of upholding the Trump administration's proposed public charge rule. In light of the proposed rule confusing litigation and fear, a large number of immigrant families already decided to forego receiving health care and assistance with food. And at the same time, our community is experiencing an unprecedented rate of unemployment in light of COVID-19, which leaves us more vulnerable and in need of resources. Judge Barrett's bias and records demonstrate that she is not the justice for our community, which is why we strongly condemn her nomination and ask all of you to contact your senators and ask that they do not move forward with this hearing. Thank you.
My name is Peter Morley. I'm a patient and a patient advocate. In 2007, my life was changed when I had an accident and became disabled. Since then, I've had 10 surgeries in 13 years, survived cancer twice, and was diagnosed with lupus, which I struggle with every single day. I take 38 different prescriptions, see 17 different doctors to manage my care. Without access that the ACA affords me to my medications, my diseases would progress and I would die. Gutting the ACA not only means something to me, but it means something to the 135 million with pre-existing conditions that the ACA protects. I live with over 10 pre-existing conditions myself. President Trump is trying to ram through Amy Coney Barrett, who will single-handedly be the vote to destroy the ACA. This court case has been going on since February 2018. It is a means to an end to repeal Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act, which are the same for millions of Americans 21 million Americans would immediately suffer. I am calling on the decency and the compassion of the senators to please vote no. When you look at this video, please remember that there is a human and millions of humans that are counting on you to vote no. Please consider us. Please think about that.
We are so excited that you were able to join us today. We hope that you learned something new. We hope that you reach out to family and friends to let them know the importance of what's at stake when it comes to this nomination and when it comes to what the Supreme Court's impact is on all the issues that we care about. Passing it to my colleague, Keith Therian.
Thanks, Cedric. Thank you, Lori. Thank you to the dozens of organizations who partnered and spoke out on this rally. And most importantly, thank you to the thousands of you who've tuned in. And now we need to transfer that into calls and into actions. Pull out your phone, call your senators at 202-224-3121. Today, tomorrow, and every day through this fight. Fill the digital airwaves with the hashtags #OurCourt, WeDissent, and Block Barrett. Sign petitions, turn out to virtual events. If you're comfortable, protest in safe, socially distant actions. However works for you, help build this movement and speak out against Barrett's nomination. Lori, over to you to close us out.
Thank you so much, Keith, and thank you, Cedric, and thank you to all the wonderful speakers who've been with us today. I'm going to give that phone number one more time because we need as many calls as we can get, 202-224-3121. We have a long weekend ahead, plenty of time to make your voice heard. And thank you again, everyone who's joined us today for everything that you do. And we'll see you soon.